When my husband was first diagnosed with cancer more than 12 years ago, I remember how many people would regularly check in with me to see how he was doing. And I was inundated with phone calls and text messages. People would stop me in public to find out how he was. The more people did this, the more I began to notice it actually didn't make me as happy as I thought I should feel to know that all of these people were looking out for him. And over time, I found myself sad or angry after responding back with what almost always was a misrepresentation of how he really was, because no one really wants to hear how hard it is to stomach stripping drains at first, or how difficult it is to recover from a 14-hour surgery. One day, I realized that the problem wasn't that they were checking in on him, but they weren't checking in on me and how I was doing. And once I realized why I had a negative gut reaction to people doing what they thought they should, I felt shame, regret, but then sadness, and sometimes rage, and most times loneliness. And at the same time, I was overwhelmed with people telling me to let them know how they can help, because that outpouring of support only added to a task list that no one should really have in the first place. I was scheduling MRIs, CT scans, planning on special diets necessary for upcoming treatments, and raising a young child, and doing everything I could to not make her world seem scary. And on top of it, people were just waiting for me to ask them for help when I didn't have the energy to do the things I already had to do. And when you and I are in the trenches of caregiving, it feels impossible to pause to delegate your needs to someone else. So you carry on taking your loved one to their scans, radiation and chemotherapy treatments, and to see doctors and oncologists. And the whole time you're wearing the grief that you feel of the life that you lost, the life that you thought that you would live with the loved one that you're caring for. And the longer we're caregivers, the more experience we have with trying to do things on our own and trying to bury and ignore the resentment we feel at times, because we feel it would hurt more to share that emotion with someone and be misunderstood than it would to just to live with it. And over time, the reaching out from people slows down. Being told to let them know how to help stops, and everyone goes on with their lives while you continue to try your best to make sure your loved one has the best life they can have while you neglect your own. Hi, I'm Charlotte, and I've been a cancer caregiver for over a decade. I'm the creator of the Cancer Caregiver podcast, as well as the Love Your Caregiving Life podcast. Even though I speak often on the needs of caregivers, interview experts on the subject, and worked with caregivers one-on-one, I still sometimes find people misunderstand how caregiving affects even my life. By the end of this workshop, you will have a better understanding of why it's hard for you to get the help you need, what tasks you can have people help you with that will make the most impact, and how to get the support you deserve. There are some universal issues we all have as cancer caregivers. We feel lonely, we feel fear, we feel like caregiving has taken over our lives and we've lost ourselves along the way. Maybe you feel you don't like the life you're living right now, and caregiving is all you do. It's what you eat, drink, and sleep, if you get any sleep. And I know what it's like to collapse into bed, overwhelmed by the anger, the resentment, the fear, and loneliness that came to bed with you. You feel like no one else could possibly understand the spiral of doubt, guilt, and regret that takes over in the middle of the night. And I know you want more. You don't want to feel suffocated by loneliness, and you want to do things that bring you joy. You just can't bring yourself to prioritize your own care because you don't feel you have the permission to. And everyone around you overlooks the things you need to do for yourself. They don't seem to see how much of a struggle it can be for you on some days. And you don't feel you can show them how hard caregiving can be for you because you worry they'll compare your hardships with that of the cancer your loved one is trying to live with. Meanwhile, people still ask you about the person you're caring for, but you resent that no one asks about you or acknowledges the importance of what you do. So you feel stuck. You know you need help. but no one seems to notice how badly you need their support. And maybe you feel like it's too late. Your window of time for support request has passed. You could be years into your caregiving and feel like you can't ask for help anymore, even though you really need it. Yet the loneliness you feel is overwhelming. You feel your family and friends have moved on with their lives and left you behind. There's no one to help, no one to talk to, and no one who truly understands what you're going through. So you feel invisible. And some days you just want to be seen. Before we move into how to get the recognition and support you need, let's sit with these emotions first. Feeling misunderstood, invisible, unappreciated, lonely, resentful, angry, scared are all normal emotions that all of us caregivers experience at some point. Maybe you've been trying to just suffer through these feelings and you push past them because you feel you have no other choice. You resign yourself to a life that feels miserable. You're angry at the unfairness of it all, how your life has turned out, and how no one sees your pain. You just tell yourself this is the way it has to be. But deep down, you know you want more. You want to feel like you can take a break. You want to look forward to your day when you wake up, and you want to not have to do all the things you're doing on your own. So let's find one thing you can give over to someone else to do. I'd like you to take some notes as we move on. Let's start off with figuring out what you want your first goal to be. Do you want to feel less alone? The ability to enjoy a moment of peace without the crushing weight of caregiving stress? Maybe take a bath, a full night's sleep, or just breathe without worry. Do you want someone to show up for you? Someone to say, you need help and I'm going to help you? Just hearing this list can make you tired. I get it. Taking the time to really understand what you need right now when the list is long can feel overwhelming. But look at it like this. If, let's say, you can't sleep well at night because you stay up worrying about how you're going to get all the clothes washed this week, then couldn't finding a person to help you with tasks around the house also be the start to fixing your sleeping problem? Let's say you aren't able to think straight because your loved one has had to go to the ER multiple times this week because they aren't reacting well to chemotherapy. But then you still have to drive them to their treatment appointments daily for the next 2 weeks. If your focus right now was to get support with transportation, would that free up some of your time that you could use to reset and rest? You deserve support. You should have had it from the very beginning, but that very often isn't the case for caregivers. Or you've had a ton of support for the first month and then it disappears just as quickly as it showed up. So now you have a long list of things you need and growing anger and resentment because no one is showing up to help or support you. There's so much you need right now that it can be hard to figure out what one thing can be your support focus that could have an impact on your life at the moment. When we don't know what form of support will really make a difference, then it's hard to know what to ask for. That's why it's frustrating for you when someone actually asks how they can help. Pause for a moment and write down everything you'd like to have help with or would like to not have to do. Then take a step away if you can, and then come back to see if you can find something in common with a big group of what you have written down. Because saying that you need support, that you feel misunderstood, which fuels the feeling of loneliness you walk around with, is telling what you feel and why you feel it. But unfortunately, to get the support you need, you have to be very direct. No one is going to come in and take over and just know all the things you need done. It could be possible that right now you feel really uncomfortable with this. Maybe you feel shame and wanting more when your loved one is having a hard time with their health. Possibly you feel guilt anytime you want to make your life better. All caregivers experience that. The difference between those who are able to advocate for themselves and those who can't is their ability to acknowledge their feelings but still move forward to prioritize themselves. You've already shown incredible strength. You care for someone who needs you. You advocate for them and fight for what they need. That same strength is within you, ready to help you advocate for your own needs. It's not that you aren't supposed to enjoy your life as a caregiver. It's just that no one has shown you how. You need support, a roadmap, and someone to remind you that you are just as deserving of care as the person you're caring for. Your journey matters. Your needs matter. You shouldn't feel like you need to do this alone. And today is about taking the first step back towards yourself. You aren't invisible. You're a beacon of strength, courage, and resilience. So let's take that action to make that journey easier. Let's look back at this first section. Try not to ignore the emotions you feel or try to push through them. It's hard to focus on yourself when your loved one is battling cancer. I know. But keep in mind your feelings and needs are valid. Not addressing them affects how you show up for yourself, show up as a caregiver for your loved one, and how you're able to enjoy time with them. Caring for yourself isn't selfish, it's essential, and neglecting your well-being might feel like the easier thing to do. But prioritizing your health makes you a stronger caregiver. So let's pause and write down everything you would love to have help with or don't want to do anymore. Then see if you can group tasks that have one thing in common together to help you determine if there's one thing in each group that would help you the most. For this workshop, I'd like you to have one task in mind as we continue to work through this together. So as you go through your list, find the one that feels most doable for you right now. Let's move on to the next step. Step 2, let's acknowledge your emotions. First, make sure that you've identified the one thing you'd like to have help with. And now let's check in with how you feel and how those feelings and emotions can get in the way of this process. We've already mentioned shame and guilt. There could be others that stop you from advocating for yourself. Most times, those feelings show up and we immediately give up before trying. They can fuel negative self-talk like, no one is going to help me. It'll feel worse after asking for help than it does right now. Why would anyone want to do something to help me anyway? I can keep doing it all by myself, or it would be more work than it's worth to explain what to do. And then the worst one. What if someone says that they will help, but then they don't actually show up? I've said some of these to myself, and let me tell you, it's hard to get past them. They are some major roadblocks that are real for so many of us. A lack of self-worth can be easy to develop when you don't have people showing they feel what you do has value. But we're not going to wait around anymore to feel like we have the permission of the people around us to deserve help, are we? That's not to say it isn't hard at first. But here's something to consider. Oftentimes, when you let your feelings and thoughts out, they lose their power over you, especially if it's something you've been trying to keep to yourself. So how can you let them out? There are 2 different ways you can use to express yourself. You can outwardly process with someone called external expression, or you can use tools that allow you to do this on your own called internal expression. External expression is sharing with others, taking some time to talk through the things that get in the way of you asking for help can be a great way for you to see through that roadblock. But here are some things to consider if you want to share with someone. First, set boundaries. Know what your goal is before sharing with someone, especially if this is something new between you and this person. Let the person know if you just want to talk through things and don't want them to help you solve a problem, or if you'd like their input, let them know, because this sets the expectation with the person you're speaking with and can help them focus on what you need. Before you share, ask the person if it's a good time for them to talk. And make sure that you're ready too, that you're in the right emotional state to share. If you're hungry, exhausted, or overwhelmed, it might be best to wait or to find a different time. Internal expression is when you process on your own, and this can feel like a safer option if you don't feel there is someone to talk to that won't judge or take things personally. You can journal, and I get it. It's been on every list of things that you've been told that you need to do, but it is a safe space just for you to write about what's getting in your way. And it might not be your thing, but here's a little framework in case you want to try. These are the 3 steps that I take. First, write down what you feel when you want to work on gaining the caregiver support you need. Then, Note what specific support you would ask for if you had the strength to. And then list how this support would allow you to enjoy your life a little more and be a better caregiver. You can use voice notes. If you don't feel like writing or are better able to express yourself verbally, record a quick voice note to get your thoughts out without judgment. Almost every cell phone has a voice recorder app, or you can download one. You can use affirmations, positive phrases to keep your mindset on track. Simple affirmations can help you maintain focus and reinforce positivity during the day and remind you of the strength you have to advocate for yourself. So let's just recap what we talked about. You need to acknowledge and process your emotions, specifically the ones that get in the way of you asking for help. Recognizing your emotions and the things that get in the way is crucial, especially when faced with tough decisions. Start by admitting that your emotions are present. This is the first step towards managing them effectively. Use methods like journaling, talking to someone, or practicing mindfulness to help process what you're feeling. This helps clear your mind and prevents emotions from building up. In the next section, we'll talk about the one emotion that almost always gets in the way, but you might not realize is there. Welcome back. There's an underlying reason all of us have difficulty asking for help that works as the foundation for the reasons you normally have acknowledged get in the way of you seeking the support you need. I've had my own difficulties with asking for help. When my husband was first diagnosed with cancer, it was hard for me to integrate all the new things I found I needed to do with and for my husband into the life I was already living. And I just assumed I was somehow supposed to be pre-caregiver me and caregiver me all at the same time and make it work. And never did I get the feeling or did someone tell me that I didn't need to do it all on my own. Having people not check in with me when they checked in on my husband was a subtle cue that I wasn't supposed to need anything. And the problem with that was when I couldn't do it on my own, I felt like I was failing the expectations I was supposed to live up to. Asking for help would have meant I had to admit I had somehow failed at being a caregiver. And trying to live up to a standard you feel obligated to meet, often based on lack of support from the start, makes it difficult to ask for help. This ties into what social psychologists have found. There are studies that have been conducted over the past 15 years that say the underlying reason you have difficulty asking for help is because you're embarrassed. We're embarrassed to ask for help because we want people to think we are the selfless caregivers we think they expect us to be. And the need for support shows we are failing at it. Asking for help causes you to be embarrassed, so you just don't ask. If you look at all the reasons we give for not asking for help, it can be pretty easy to see the embarrassment underneath. Like, I wouldn't know what to have help with because it's embarrassing to let people know I can't do regular everyday tasks. I can't actually do all these things on my own, but I'd be embarrassed to ask someone to help me and have them find out I took that extra time to rest. I've been doing this all on my own for years, and it's embarrassing for me to let people know I can't do that anymore. Or one of the most difficult, I've asked people to help me in the past, and when they didn't follow through, I was embarrassed. They obviously don't think I actually need their help, and maybe they're right. It's helpful to know what gets in the way of you asking for help. Trying to continue to look like you're able to be successful as a caregiver when the idea of success didn't come for you in the first place isn't ever going to allow us to enjoy our lives with the people we care for. Embarrassment is uncomfortable, and many times it makes asking for help feel too vulnerable. Understanding that this is a normal reaction, hopefully, can help you work through this roadblock. Take a moment to write down the emotions and roadblocks that usually get in the way of asking or even just planning on how to ask for the help you need. Write everything down that comes to mind. Let's move on to step 3. Take a moment to look at the goal you identified in step 1 and then how you plan on addressing the things that can get in the way of working towards that goal. In this next step, we're going to create a plan to get that support. First, let's acknowledge that it really shouldn't be this much work to get the support you need. When your loved one was diagnosed and everyone went into overdrive to set up consults with specialists for them, set up their diagnostic testing, meetings with nurses and their medical team, they should have done the same for you. Most times, you aren't even sent away with a number to call for a social worker. Being overlooked makes it very easy to feel like you don't deserve support. Not assigning someone to help you acclimate to being a caregiver, or at the very least, handing you something to read to let you know what support you might need and should consider asking for, is a disservice to all cancer caregivers. If caregiving held a higher social value and people understood it more, you would have more support. But we can't wait around for that to change and happen. It's time to build your plan for getting the support you need. Even though embarrassment plays a big part in getting in the way, the helpers in your life are also part of the problem. There are several psychosocial studies conducted to understand the dynamic of a help seeker and a helper, and why asking for help and knowing to give help are difficult for both of us. They found that people in a position to provide help tend to underestimate the role that embarrassment plays in decisions about whether or not to ask for help, and think that help isn't needed when really people face barriers in being able to ask for it. These studies show that the helpers in your life think you're fine because you aren't asking for help directly. They don't understand that your aversion to feeling embarrassed is overriding your need for help. So when you feel like people have stopped offering to help when you need it, you're right, they have, because they're waiting for you to approach them. And if you don't, they think everything must be okay. And this doesn't make it okay. But it can give you an understanding of what you might have already felt to be true. Understanding that it's normal for others to misunderstand why it's hard for you to ask them to help you, and that most people think you're fine if you aren't reaching out to them, makes it a little easier to not take their lack of support as personal as we sometimes do. Of course, having an understanding of this dynamic doesn't instantly make it easier to ask for help. It's not lost on me that the barrier of embarrassment didn't just fall away right now, and the resentment that you've been carrying all these years isn't going to suddenly disappear. When you consider asking someone for help, one of the things that might go through your mind is, I don't want to inconvenience them. They have a lot going on right now. I'll just do it myself. On top of the many reasons you've already had to weed through to get closer to asking for support, and then dealing with the embarrassment and other emotions caused by wanting to act on this need, you stop yourself because you worry about how this will affect them in a negative way. However, studies have found that when people help another person, they get something out of it just by helping. That being kind to others and helping another person makes them feel good. And understanding that asking your friend to help with meals during a chemo week for your loved one can actually help them feel good about themselves and can give your request a sense of purpose for not only you, but for them. How many times have we enjoyed helping someone else because it distracted us from the things going on in our lives? How many times have you had a crappy day sitting in a medical waiting room, just feeling in a bad mood, and noticed how it's just lifted by smiling at a fellow caregiver passing by, or opening a door for someone, or simply saying you're welcome while you're there? When someone helps you, they get at least a little of positivity back from doing it. So let's keep those two things in mind when putting together your plan. One, they aren't still telling you to reach out for help when you need it, because when they don't hear from you, they assume everything is okay. And two, asking someone to help you gives them the gift of feeling good about themselves. So let's keep those 2 points in mind, along with the things that usually get in the way of asking for help, and know that it's okay and normal for this to feel like a difficult process. Let's also keep in mind that for you to be able to care for your loved one through the challenges of cancer, it benefits not only you, but them when you ask for help. Doing things to reduce the stress you live with allows you the opportunity to actually prioritize your own needs, so you can begin to enjoy moments of your life with them. Now, let's move on to how to actually identify the person you're going to ask for help. Welcome to the next step. We're going to work on figuring out who you're going to ask for help for the task that you identified at the beginning. Here's how we're going to do that. You've already identified the support you need. You've gone through the first two steps and have taken some time to decide on what task you really need help with right now. And you have addressed or at least written down the things that can get in the way of you asking for the help that you need and are really clear on what you want next. We need to get as specific as possible. If you need support with home repairs, get even more specific with what repairs you need and prioritize what really needs to be done first. And also, we're going to decide on a budget. Knowing if you have the ability to pay for this help will allow you to ask for the support effectively. It will also help you problem solve who to reach out to and what to ask for. Once you know what one specific thing you're going to get help with, you know what specifically will get in the way of you asking for that help and maybe even having a plan on working through those emotions so that they don't get in the way as much as they normally do. And you have a budget. Knowing if there is a budget or if there isn't is a good way to start. Now let's identify the person to ask. You can't ask a person who loves to bake to fix the leak under the kitchen sink and expect a good job to be done, or for them to even have the motivation to do it. Ask people to help based on their interests and strengths. Think as broad and as narrow as you can. For example, maybe you know someone who's really good at organizing events, but not good at preparing meals. They could, however, be great at organizing a fundraising drive or setting up a care calendar that lists things that need to be done so people can sign up for them. Maybe you have a friend that doesn't like to cook but loves to meal plan and grocery shop. She could help make that process a lot easier for you. Play to the interests and the strengths of a person, and you will have a better chance of them showing up and following through. This is one of the biggest issues in getting help. And I know many of us have asked for help and had people offer to support us, but didn't show up or follow through with the promise. This makes it difficult to ask for help again, especially of the same person. Most importantly, it can really be a hard hit to our self-esteem, bring up the uncomfortableness of embarrassment. You have to be slightly vulnerable to ask someone to help you. So it's hard not to take it personal when they don't follow through. But let's try to reframe this scenario. How about when someone doesn't show up to help when they said they would? We do our best not to see it as a reflection on our worth, but a problem on their end. The why doesn't matter. It isn't fair for you when this happens, but it isn't a reflection of you as a person. It's also the reason for the next step. Moving on to step 4, asking if they're actually able to help. Wanting to help and being able to help are two different things. You know all too well how difficult it can be to say no to someone. The person you ask to help you can have the same problem and really want to step in, but have things going on in their lives that makes it difficult to do. So when you ask for their help, you give them an opportunity to say no by making sure they're actually able to show up. It can be as simple as saying, "Wow, I really appreciate you offering to help. I need this support, so I just want to make sure you'll be able to help me with this." We all have something going on in our lives, and it's possible that you know as little about their hardships as they know yours. So be very clear and let them know you'll really be counting on them. Step 5, be specific. You have the task and have identified a person able to do it. Now you have to get very specific. This all depends on the task and the time requirement. However, make an appointment with them just like you would a doctor's appointment for the person you care for, and make sure you are also on time. Make sure everyone is clear on task, time, and place. Even if you've made a verbal agreement, make sure it's written somewhere. So a calendar invite would be perfect, or a text with the information. Again, play to their strengths. If it's someone who doesn't use their calendar but always texts, you know how to get them the information they need. When you ask for the help, try to use as active a voice as you comfortably can. I know this can be hard because it already feels like you're asking for too much and you're literally waiting for them to say no. But try to go into it expecting them to say yes and think of it as an opportunity for them to help you. Let's not forget that anytime a person helps someone else, they feel good about themselves after it. Don't feel like you're the only one receiving something. Step 6, consider following up. We all like to feel valued and appreciated. We all know this. Sending a quick text a day or two before your agreed upon day would be a great reminder and gives you an opportunity to let them know how much you appreciate their help. I get that this feels like work you shouldn't have to do. So many caregivers feel that people should be really motivated to offer their help, but the fact that I have to even make this video means that it's not the reality for most of us. Consider this. Outsource the support you need the same you would for your loved one. Be specific. Follow up and manage these tasks like you would manage your loved one's physical therapy or doctor and treatment scheduling. You're so strong-minded when you schedule things for them, and you are so persistent in getting an appointment that has to happen as soon as possible. It's all done with very little feeling involved, right? So do your best to keep that in mind when you feel self-conscious or embarrassed about asking someone to help you. Have the same mindset you would if you had to advocate for your loved one getting into a diagnostic appointment when time is of the essence. Let's talk about what happens when people actually show up. The assumption usually is that no one will actually show up to help you. I completely understand how that feels, but what happens when they do? Accept the help. It can be challenging to accept help from others when you've been managing everything on your own for so long. You've developed a sense of independence and resilience out of necessity. So when people finally offer support, it can feel uncomfortable. It's almost as if accepting help threatens the self-reliance you've worked so hard to build. And let's be real, when things start to actually fall into place, it can really mess with your mind. After all the stress, exhaustion, and feeling like you're carrying the world on your shoulders, having someone step in might feel foreign or even unsettling. That internal voice might even whisper, "Is something wrong with me? I've been asking for help and now I'm actually getting it. Why can't I just be happy about it?" But here's the truth. Feeling this way is completely normal. It's not about being ungrateful or conflicted. It's about adjusting to a new reality where you're no longer shouldering the burden alone. Allow yourself the space to feel uncomfortable and recognize that this discomfort is just part of the process of letting go of some control and letting others in. It's okay to take time to adapt to this change. It doesn't mean you don't deserve the help you're receiving. What happens when people don't show up? Now, let's talk about the fear many of you have right now. What do I do when people don't show up? First, recognize and accept that it hurts. Let yourself feel the weight of the injustice and acknowledge the loneliness that may surface. It's important to sit with these feelings for a moment rather than push them away. Remember how we discussed managing emotions earlier? Find a safe and productive outlet to express what you're going through. In my opinion, every caregiver should have access to a mental health professional as part of their support system. However, if that's not an option for you right now, consider reaching out to someone in your community whom you trust and respect. Another alternative is joining a caregiver support group led by a licensed therapist. Or just keep in mind that the time in these groups is shared among all participants, so you may not have the space to explore your emotions as deeply as you would in a one-on-one therapy. Then I want you to revisit the budget question I asked you. If you have no budget, then you need people to volunteer. Reach out to your religious institution if you have one. Think of anything you might be connected to, like a social group, a gym or movement studio, a mom group. Your loved one's hospital team could have some contacts that can help, or even a coordinator you didn't know you had access to. If you have a small budget, pick a task that will have a big impact, and then decide if you want to work with someone you know or hire someone you don't. There are pros and cons of both. If it's someone you know, you could offer to pay them for their time or for the supplies they need. Hiring a company or a contractor is very transactional, and that could be a plus. Don't think of it just for household repairs. If you need help with meals, you could consider buying a pre-made meal plan, sign up for a grocery delivery service, join a meal delivery subscription, or pay someone you know to make double their meals and bring you the extra half. There are companies that will wash your clothes for you. You don't even have to leave the house. You just leave the bags at your front door and they show back up washed and folded the next day. Can you wash your clothes and make all your meals and go grocery shopping, plus tape up the pipe that is still leaking under the sink and cry out of exhaustion while cutting the grass before your neighbors complain? Which, by the way, if anyone ever complains or comments about the state of your home or how you look or things you don't do, take that as an opening to invite them to step in to help. Thing is, you shouldn't have to do all those things, especially if it doesn't give you time for yourself or to simply enjoy time with your loved one. You don't win any awards for being overwhelmed and burnout. You can't wait anymore for people to see your needs and just step in to help. You have to find a way to ask for the help you need and demand that someone takes notice. Here's a secret. You don't even have to have a reason why you need this help. It can be as simple as because you don't want to do it. Don't ever feel you have to justify why you're asking for specific support. If a person doesn't want to help, move on. But don't waste time trying to convince someone to help with a specific task, because most likely they won't show up and the emotional toll will be too expensive. Don't forget why you need the help. If you don't manage your stress, you won't be able to be an effective caregiver. Your loved one needs you to be able to do things for them. They need for you to be healthy and care for yourself. If having someone do the grocery shopping for you allows you to take a nice long shower or sit next to your loved one and laugh at a TV show, step out into the sun for a bit, or even take a quick nap, why not do it? You don't have to wait to feel like you have the permission to ask for help. You just have to decide what you really need help with. Then you can identify what feelings or negative self-talk will get in the way and work through it so you can finally find the person most suited to support you. You deserve to have a team of people to help you, just like the team your loved one has to support them. Remember, you don't have to navigate caregiving alone. Seek out people in your community that can support you, whether they're professionals, fellow caregivers, or trusted friends. By now, you have a plan. You know exactly what you want to ask help for. You know the emotions and the negative self-talk that will get in the way. You have an idea or definitely know who you can ask for help with this one task. You understand how to ask them and understand the importance of being specific with your request and scheduling time with them. You know how to remind them. You understand that even though you're worried it'll put them out, they'll actually get a good feeling by helping you. You understand the possibilities of how good and how bad and how uncomfortable it can feel if someone actually shows up for you or doesn't. And it'll be okay, because you deserve this help that you're going to ask for. Remember, you don't have to navigate caregiving alone. There are people out there that are waiting to help. They just need to be told that you need the help they're ready to give. The more you use this framework to find the support you need, the easier it will become. Life's short. Cancer sucks. But you deserve to enjoy your life and to gain the support that you need in order to be able to do that. So let's get started. Remember, you can do this.